it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, August 28th to Saturday, September 3rd. So last week we had a pretty eventful week, if I do say so myself. Of course, we wrapped up Leo season, dove right into Virgo season. That's where many of us started feeling very heavy, very weighted, semi-depressed, highly pressured. Of course, Virgo season kind of began when we had the moon in Cancer, which never makes things easy to deal with. We had to sort through our thoughts, our feelings, and for many of us, we'd like to avoid those things like the plague. Virgo season is here to help us provide solutions to our problems, but many of us failing to realize that we have to feel what it is that we have to heal. Virgo energy is the healer of the zodiac, sits on the healing axis between Virgo energy and Pisces energy. Pisces, of course, wants to heal the soul, heal the emotions, heal the memories, heal the karma, while Virgo energy wants to heal the physical body, the physical form, the physical circumstances. So, needless to say, we get off to a little bit of a rough start. And then, of course, we had Uranus, the Great Awakener, go retrograde on the 24th. Only 2 days in between those massive energy shifts, and Uranus going retrograde has definitely turned on the jitters, turned on the nervousness, turned on the anticipation. Now, we did talk about those being Ascension symptoms last week, but again, many of us very surprised when it actually happens. We had a lot of pressure build up in the mental plane over this past week, a lot because entering into Virgo season, again, Mercury rules over Virgo season. That added a little bit of pressure. Uranus going retrograde, that's the higher level intellect of our mental plane. And then the very next day on the 25th, we had Mercury leave its place of power in Virgo energy to jump into Libran energy. So many of us were feeling the squeeze. Hopefully you felt that shift. Hopefully it's a little bit lighter in your mental plane, in your crown, in your head. But don't get your hopes up too high because, again, we have the new moon in Virgo taking place very early Saturday morning on the 27th. So if you're tuning in and listening to me Friday evening here in the chat, first, I want to thank you for being here. But second, I want to say that we are in the dark phase of the moon. We are in the new moon window, anticipating that peak energy very early Saturday morning. If you haven't listened to the astro forecast, please go ahead and do so. If you haven't downloaded your moon guide, please go ahead and do so. This last week was the full August wrap up. Now, granted, we do have a couple of days left in August, but we definitely had a very turbulent week, I would say. An electric week, I could say, that many of us felt in our physical bodies, mostly due to the central nervous system. Again, last week we talked about all the electricity coming in from the cosmos, from the solar flares, from the CMEs. We have all kinds of energy coming in from the sun, but every single time we have a planetary shift, we have that shift happening in our bodies, in our minds, in our heart space, in our electromagnetic frequency. And that has a huge contributing effect on why many of us did not feel so good over this past week. So this week, what do we got going on? Well, we will bring August to a close, bringing that lesson of 8 to its final chapter. Again, reminder, if you need to go back and listen to what August's energy forecast was supposed to be about, that number 8 was about transition from death, from rebirth, renewal, a full transformation, if you will. Much of that because we again had the Lionsgate portal in August. We had a choice point to choose from in August. And now that we're getting August behind us, we will be jumping into September. That brings us the lesson of 9. It is essentially harvest season, my friends. We need to realize that we are bringing things full circle, especially dating back to March, April of this year. up until this point, we've been trying very hard to bring forth different foundational cornerstones of the new reality, the new dream, the new vision that many of us are trying to manifest. We are still very much in a reinvention, rebranding type of season when it comes to who it is that we are. Many of us not sure who it is that we are becoming. We sure as hell know who it is that we never want to be again. But of course, we're left in this awkward transitional period that's creating a lot of turbulence emotionally for a lot of people. One thing that I find super interesting, just taking a quick look at September, and of course the energy that September is going to bring, is that when we jump into September, first of all, September 1st lands on a Thursday. Thursday ruled over by Jupiter. Jupiter is about growth. It's about improvement. It's about changing our, let's say, belief system and what it is that we think is possible. It is going to magnify the transformation that we've been going through. And let me just say, what's even more interesting is that the moon will be in Scorpio on the very first day of the month. And Scorpio, as you know, is all about transformation, ruled over by Pluto, the great transformer himself. This is a lot of shadow work, a lot of, I'm going to say, kind of defragging, cutting those, cords, tying up those loose ends, and, reaping the rewards from our efforts, from our energy already, and preparing for this next chapter, for this next season. And of course, once we hit that fall equinox in October, that is when brand new energy comes in for us to add on to this storyline that we have been building. So September is going to be jam-packed, again, full of lots of astro energies in order to help us figure things out. Again, you can look forward to September's energy forecast dropping this week. I have a lot to do. I have a lot on my list to do. So all that we're dealing with this week is the transition from August to September, the life lesson that we are wrapping up in August and what we are beginning in September, and the first couple of days in September, all we're building to is the first quarter moon that we will be having in Sagittarius energy on the 3rd. Now, let's just kind of put this into perspective, okay? We're just entering into the new moon in Virgo energy. The new moon in Virgo energy is heavy. It's weighted. Again, please listen to the astro forecast and download your moon guide. There are some aspects that are in total conflict, highlighting the conflict, the tension, the struggle, highlighting where it is that we are restless, where it is that we're disappointed and in a disagreement within ourselves and within our personal relationships. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So the first quarter moon is the first phase of the moon when the moon is visible in the sky once again from the dark phase of the moon of the new moon. And suddenly we see an action point, a choice point, a decision point. Now, this taking place in Sagittarius is very interesting because Sag is kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. It is, when we renew our faith, renew our spirits, renew our trust in ourselves, in the process, in the cosmos, in the universe. It's when we start seeing the greater, grander picture and vision take place. It is a very, I'm going to say, hopeful energy. And it is essentially when we get to change our belief system so that we can take action on some of the things that we're currently doubting. And with the new moon in Virgo energy that we're currently sitting in, there's all kinds of doubts, all kinds of insecurities. Why? Because we are just picking things apart. That's what Virgo season's all about, is discernment. We have to pick things apart, analyze the very minute details, the inner workings of our mind, of our heart space, of our physical circumstances. And entering into September in Virgo season is essentially why, vacation time is over, why the kids go back to school, why, everybody's got to jump into a brand new routine, why everybody's focused on, the daily tasks and chores and the new diets that we have to start and the new new health regimens that we need to jump into because, Virgo energy wants to get organized. We've kind of been winging it, flying by the seat of our pants. There's been a lot of craziness, a lot of chaos. And the Virgo energy is here to put things in place, to put things in order. And so we're definitely feeling the push, feeling the squeeze of that. I do feel like the vibe will be a little bit lighter entering into September, only because we're getting past this new moon in Virgo point here in August. And then, September we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We got to get organized. We got to focus on what it is we actually are doing here. We have new goals. We have new dreams. We have new visions that we're actively working towards. We are starting to see the puzzle pieces snap together. The bigger picture is being revealed, but we still have a lot of work to do. So considering that this week, realistically, there's not a whole lot going on planet-wise, I hesitate to say that we're going to get a break because we're still in integration and recalibration season. That's why we're feeling the push, the pull in our physical bodies, in our heart space, in our head space. But it almost seems like the universe is kind of just giving us a little tiny bit of a break. Now, that being said, keep your eye on the Schumann Resonance, because I bet, if I was a betting girl, I bet we're going to see some really amazing things pop off on the Schumann Resonance, where solar flares are concerned, where, all of this energy coming in from the cosmos is concerned, because that's what we need right now to get these light codes that have already been downloaded within us activated online in working order. So not a bad deal for us moving into a brand new month. This week, hopefully, is going to be super easy to navigate. Just keep in mind that the very last day of August, anytime we are finishing up a month and a particular life lesson, there's always that squeeze. There's always that push. And again, we're in Virgo season. Things are low and slow and heavy and weighted. We have to be, stuck in our physical bodies, stuck in our physical circumstances for a reason. Earth energy is practical and logical and tangible and very focused on the here and now, which for many of us, the here and now is not so comfortable. But we have to feel uncomfortable in order for us to recognize what needs to change. And like I said, you got to feel what it is that you got to heal. And you have to identify the problems in order to provide solutions. And that's what Virgo season is all about. So let's jump into the Ascension symptoms. But first, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for the likes, for the comments, for the shares. I want to thank you for those who have donated financially. Thank you for those hitting that thanks button that YouTube has activated under my videos. I want to also just remind you that we are entering into a new month, which would be a great time to consider subscribing to the Energy Guide. If you haven't already, it's free. It'll keep you on track and in alignment with all of the energy popping off. You could subscribe to the Moon Guide if you haven't already. That is a paid subscription. And I was hesitant to even talk about the fact that I am actively building a Patreon membership account, and that I will be activating a YouTube membership account here very shortly. The reason why I wanted to hesitate is because that puts a lot of pressure on me. I have a huge list of things to do. I'm hoping to be able to get them done by the 1st of September, so I don't want to put it all out there and then have these expectations for me to live up to and crumble under the pressure of. And as you all well know, I am a professional procrastinator. So I leave everything to the last minute. And the last thing that I want to do is set myself up for a very stressful week next week. But here's what I will say. What I like about the Patreon is that even if you're not a paid member, all the free posts that I've been doing, all the free content that I put out there, most people don't see, especially on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, because I'm censored and shadow banned. So like I said, I'm lucky to even get my content in front of 100 people at this point. But what I really like about the Patreon is that when you download the app, it sends notifications, push notifications to your phone every single time that I make a post, which means that you're not going to miss the content, the free content. Now, like I said, I am actively building towards adding, paid content. But as of right now, I would suggest you go ahead, download the Patreon app, find me, The Energy Boutique, and at least subscribe so that you're getting notifications to my free content. Now, I don't know what's up with YouTube. YouTube should be pushing my content in front of y'all who have liked and subscribed to my channel, but it doesn't. So I still don't know what to do about YouTube, but I am going to dabble into this Patreon situation, this platform, just a tad, see how that goes. And if y'all want to join me over there, I would be happy to have you. So, Ascension symptoms for this week. Now, what I want to talk about is last week we had a pretty intense week, okay? There's been a lot of people that reached out that said, it feels like this was the worst one yet. They were physically down, unable to move, cramping, sadness, depression. Now, here's the thing. I hate to say that, if you're not doing the work, then you're going to continue to suffer, because that sounds really bleak. But the truth of the matter is that if you are still being absolutely just destroyed and hammered by these, light frequencies coming in, it's because you still have emotional trauma trapped in your body that you're not working on. It is also likely that you're not cleansing out and refining the temple, which is your physical form. I don't know what else to do other than in each and every single one of my daily forecasts to let y'all know, what we can expect as far as the energy coming in and how we can handle it and how we can work through the shadow self and how to make different decisions and how to recognize patterns and how to break those patterns by making different decisions. You got to do the work. And I feel really bad for people who are constantly reaching out saying that, their head hurts so bad that they can't move. Like, I feel you. I had a migraine for over 10 days, but I still wake up every day and do what I got to do. I don't let those physical ailments keep me down. I've been, in a state of, let's say, chronic illness now for over a decade. You can't just sit around hoping and praying that, tomorrow is going to be different if you're not doing the work to actively try to be better. This is a point of healing. And in Virgo season, we are going to be illuminated to what is broken, okay? What is not functioning well, what is unaligned, what is suffering from dis-ease, especially in our physical bodies, because we have to feel the pain, the suffering, the trauma in order to recognize that it needs to be healed. But once you recognize that there's a problem, you have to work on the solution, right? There are multitude of things that you can do to help your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health. There are many options and decisions and choices outside of the realm of what you think is currently possible. And it all comes down to the mental plane. And again, we're in Virgo season. Mercury, the ruler of the mental plane, rules over Virgo season. And Mercury is in its pre-shadow period. And I want to talk about this. Like, I don't know if y'all experienced it, but it almost feels like this week Mercury entered into retrograde. I had, you always have that squeeze in the mental plane. We talked about all the aspects over this past week that contributed to the pressure, to the pain, to the discomfort in the mental plane. But it was almost like I was having technology glitches. That's a Mercury retrograde thing. I was having communication meltdowns and errors and misunderstandings. That's a Mercury retrograde symptom. And I know, like I spoke about last week, that you're supposed to pay attention to some of the situations that pop off just this week gone by when Mercury moved into Libra energy, because of course Mercury will be going retrograde in Libra, because that kind of sets the stage on what it is that we're going to be experiencing when Mercury goes retrograde. But again, it almost feels like Mercury went retrograde. I don't know. Drop me a comment below on whether or not you had any Mercury retrograde like symptoms, especially with technology. Technology was glitchy as F. And I know we had Uranus go retrograde, which, huge electrical factors coming into the cosmos that do have an impact on our cell phone grids and, technology at its finest. That's like the electrical, the lightning bolt coming into the cosmos, just disrupting everything. Well, I seen that. I felt that. Even looking at certain weather patterns around the world, we see visibly when Uranus pops off because there's, earthquakes and there's fires disrupting and, lava spewing. Like there's all this crazy, crazy stuff going on. And the planetary placements are definitely to blame to that. But this Mercury retrograde feeling is going to be interesting just because it started so early. And another thing that I want to talk about is many people reached out this week about how they are seeing problems in their relationships. Now, we talked about Mercury being in Libra, focused on relationships. We talked about how Mercury retrograding in Libra was going to either break up relationships that have no business being together or really turn up the heat and turn up the pressure in existing relationships to deepen them and take them to new levels of intimacy and commitment. But may I remind you, we're in Virgo season. I know I'm going to sound repetitive here, but whatever is broken needs to come into our awareness so that it can be healed. Sometimes broken relationships need to be healed by destroying them altogether. Sometimes, broken trains of thought, broken bones, broken hearts, broken head spaces, broken circumstances. All of this brokenness will come into fruition, will come into your awareness in order to decide, to discern, again, Virgo season term, on whether or not we can heal it or not. And everything has a certain level of healing, but some people don't realize that healing can include a total cutoff, a total disconnect, a total detachment from whatever it is that is just, bringing up a lot of pain and trauma. There is a certain amount of healing that takes place when you decide to be done with a person, with a title, with an action, with a behavior, with a thought pattern, with an emotion, with a memory. And that's what we are going to be very focused on and analyzing the F out of, because again, Virgo season, that's what we need to be focused on. We need to come up with solutions. And sometimes the solution is to cut the cord and walk away altogether. And I know that doesn't feel good to a lot of people. But here's the thing, Virgo season, because it's focused on healing our brokenness and providing solutions to our problems, Virgo season is when we return to a state of wholeness. And many of us have been operating on a fragmented state of wholeness, meaning many of us don't even know what it feels like to be whole because we've been continuously giving our power away to other people. And this wholeness is going to feel awkward. Why? Because we're in a season, Virgo season, once again, that kind of, I'm going to say, glamorizes being of service to other people and helping other people out and, giving to other people. Well, guess what? You can't do it from an empty, broken ass cup, right? Sometimes being of service has to be being of service to yourself first and foremost. Maybe instead of trying to involve yourself in other people's lives and fix their problems, maybe you should be a little bit more present in your life and fix your own problems. Maybe instead of wanting to be of service and being the shoulder that people run to cry on, maybe you should take a look in the mirror and recognize that you got two shoulders that you should be crying on yourself. This is a time for us to repair ourselves, not look outside and see who else, is broken and who we can go fix. We need to be fixing ourselves. Now, there's been many people reaching out this week that says, oh man, I'm seeing the tension. I'm seeing the friction. I feel like, everything could just explode at any moment. I feel like everybody's on edge. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. And to one of my beautiful, beautiful community members here talking about eggshells, I had suggested, well, why don't you turn the tables and be the one who's laying these eggshells down for other people to be concerned about walking upon, right? It's time to switch the narrative here. So if you are constantly in a state of looking at situations at work, in your home life, in your friendships, where you feel like you need to just swoop in and fix things and rescue other people, let me just remind you that you may be interrupting their karma. It is not up to you to fix other people's problems. If people don't learn how to solve their own problems, they're not learning their life lessons. They're definitely not resolving the karma that they're here to work through. And you could actually be taking on a deficit in your karma by always intervening and interrupting somebody else's life lesson. So again, I'm going to ask that you play the upside down opposite game. If your natural demeanor is to constantly be looking outside of yourself at other people's lives, judging them, criticizing them, or constantly saying, oh, if I was them, I'd be doing it this way. Or, geez, that person looks like they're in distress. I know how to solve this. Let me swoop in. What I will say to you is let's play the upside down game. And every single time you are looking outside of yourself to fix something, why don't you say, I could go give my power away to that person and perhaps interrupt their karma, but maybe solve their problems and make their life a little bit better. Well, that sounds noble, doesn't it? Or maybe I could take a good look in the mirror and see what it is that I'm running away from within my own self, my own issues, my own problem, by trying to distract myself with outside issues that literally are none of my business. This is when we have to recognize our lack of wholeness. Now that one would say, well, wouldn't it be a good thing if you're able to go help somebody and help them out of their situation and help their life? Well, yeah, but again, you're also enabling them to not be strong enough to fix their own damn selves. This is an inner journey, a solo journey. Yes, it's good to, be open and helpful and want to share in other people's lives, but not when you're ignoring your own shit, okay? This is what it comes down to, because there's a lot of us that are constantly making excuses and constantly distracted by the outside world, because being distracted and feeling helpful and useful in other people's lives means that we don't have to take a good look at what we are not fixing within ourselves. And enough is enough, people. We are on this journey of helping, of loving, of healing, and we are at the point of the ascension process where the collective needs to understand that we have to unify, right? But how, if we are broken individuals, putting our energy out in the world to help other broken individuals, how are we supposed to unify as a broken entity? What you need to be doing is working on yourself, healing yourself, doing the inner work, the solo journey to heal yourselves. Because when you heal yourself, you heal the collective. You can unify in healing. We can come together collectively healed and be a powerful force. But if we come together to unify in our brokenness, well, again, we're just prolonging the ascension process. We are just dabbling in the shadow of the unconscious collective. That is the season that we're moving out of. We don't want to continue this process. We do have to start drawing the line in the sand, especially with our attention, right? Because again, Virgo season, mind over matter, what we focus on, what we allow to take up space in our attention, in our focus, in our mental plane, is what we create in our physical reality. So if we are constantly focused on other people and not focused enough on ourselves, then our brokenness continues while we try to put the pieces of other people's lives together, not realizing that we are doing them a disservice, because it means that they don't have to dig deep. They don't have to find their inner strength. They don't have to be resilient. They don't have to persevere and do what they need to do to dig themselves out of the hole. Okay, we all have to start digging ourselves out of the hole. And the beautiful thing about it is we all start digging ourselves out of the darkness, out of the pit, out of the hole. Once we reach the surface and we poke our little heads out, we're going to realize that we're all poking our heads out at the same time. We're all going to come out of the holes at the same time. Then we can rejoice. Then we can be happy. Then we can connect. Then we can start helping each other in ways that are different than trying to help someone when you yourself are going without and need the help yourself. Many of us have been put in such positions, especially in our childhood, to help other people that we don't know how to help ourselves. We don't even know how to declare that we need help ourselves. And this is a narrative that has got to change, and it will be changing, especially as we wrap up this harvest season, as we move through the equinox energy, as we move through the solstice energy in December, and essentially kind of move through the shadow period of the calendar to prepare ourselves for the Great Awakening that comes in the spring when the new astrological calendar begins. Again, it's all about cycles. It's all about patterns. But the cycle, the season, the pattern that we're currently in is about us taking our power back, doing the work on ourselves. Stop trying to rescue other people when you yourself are drowning. It's getting ridiculous. It's getting redundant. It's not even noble anymore. It's absolutely just insanity. So the brokenness is going to be an issue. Now, that's going to affect your heart space, right? Maybe feel brokenhearted, especially if you got relationships ending. That's going to be a little bit of a heart chakra activation, if you will. Our head space is going to continue to have pressure. The crown receiving information, the crown sorting through information, process, thoughts, ideas. Now, we talked about last week about the hair. Losing hair. Many of you reached out, again, validating in your own experience that, you must be going through a healing situation because you've lost a whole bunch of hair and your hair is definitely changing. There's been a lot of comments on the fact that, skin, nails have changed as well. You're either on the oily spectrum or the dry spectrum. There is not a comfortable in between right now. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of Virgo season and we enter into Libra season where we restore balance in our lives, we will see that middle area kind of have a little bit more experience, but right now we're kind of living on the extremes of things. With the hair, I want to talk about the crown. Obviously, our thoughts are pressurized. Our thoughts are many. We're in Virgo season. That's to be expected. What I want to talk about is the itchiness that we will be experiencing starting from the crown and working the way through the body. Now, my hair has just been itchy. My scalp has been itchy. I could literally just rip my fingernails right through. No, I don't have an issue with, dandruff, or there's no physical reason for it other than the energy coming in and out of my crown. Granted, I had a 10-day migraine, right? The pressure is now off. We're healing. That's where my itchiness is coming in. But I say this because a lot of people are reaching out to me saying, I don't have a problem with the oils in my hair. I don't have a problem with dandruff. I don't have bugs there. I don't have bug bites. I don't have scabs on my head. Why is my head so freaking itchy? Well, this is why. There's a lot of information going back and forth. Our thought process is changing. The itchiness comes with that. The itchiness will be felt in our eyes, in our inner head. So sometimes how you get itchy ears, but finger, Q-tip just ain't itching that itch. Well, that is likely going to be a thing this week. We have an itch in the back of our throat. We have itchy skin. Now, I don't mean just there's a bug bite, I'm going to itch that. I feel like it feels tingly. It feels like we walk through a cobweb and something's on our skin and it tends to be a little bit irritated. And we're constantly trying to rub this cobweb of space and time off of our body. And it feels really freaking weird. I feel like we've experienced this before. It was actually, I'm going to say probably about 6+ months ago, when the threads of the matrix became a little bit more visible. It felt like a film that we were walking through. It felt like, these magical little cobwebs that we were walking through. And it was a very uncomfortable thing because it literally feels like you can't get it off. Even after you have a shower or a bath or whatever, and you're like clean and there's no reason for it, there's still tingles, there's still itchiness. And what I will say is that, again, itchiness in the physical body is a sign of healing. And in Virgo season, we are about healing, putting the pieces back together, putting them in order, creating order where there's been chaos. And in doing so, whether you are consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it, the light codes within our DNA activations are, anchoring into the point where there is a healing going on that you might not even be aware of. And that's fine. There might be a healing going on that you are aware of. That's fine too. But just know that the itchiness always peaks when we are in a peak time of healing. And that should be a good thing, even though it is hella annoying. In the head, I want to talk about the fact that yes, there's pressure. Yes, there's crown activations, but y'all just realizing that you can only breathe out of one nostril over the other. I don't know about, you're going to have to drop me a comment. This is sinus pressure. This is third eye activation, but this is also important on what side is free and what side is congested. I want you to pay attention to that. Huge indicators going on in the body right now. We often talk about left side, right side, what that means. Right side survival, left side is more emotion and intuition. And I think it would be interesting to take a good look at the symmetry of your face. Many of us holding puffiness, water weight on one side of our face. Again, a sign of congestion. And a lot of this is just because we are still going through the recalibration, the integration stage. We are having to get one side activated, strengthened before the other side will come online. But I just think it's interesting how many people I've spoken to that are not even realizing that they're only breathing out of one nostril. And you can tell when there's a nose a whistling around you, right? You can tell when somebody's struggling to breathe freely. And I've just been noticing over the last couple of days that this is a thing. And I suspect that this is going to continue to be a thing, especially throughout next week, just because, we're going through the new moon in Virgo. The Virgo energy has a lot of pressure in the crown, activating the third eye and different levels of awareness and enlightenment anyways. And I feel like we're just needing to be a little bit more concentrated on breath work. Again, breath work is the mana, the source, the energy that we need to be more focused on. We literally can control the world when we can control our breath. We can fix certain ailments in our physical bodies based off of our breath. Many people have the physical symptoms and ailments that they do in their physical bodies because of the lack of breath, the lack of oxygen, the shallow breathing that they have. And I think that when you're only down to one nostril, that sure makes it a lot easier to focus on how hard it is to breathe and the breath that you're actually taking in. And I think that going through the recalibration and integration phase that we're currently in, it's a good thing to focus on our breathing and take good notice to whether you are bringing in enough oxygen for your body to actually feel good and function. What I want to talk about is the fact that many of us are extremely annoyed, extremely irritated, extremely frustrated. If I was to describe the current mood that we're all in, it would be, right? I'm gonna do that again for you. Right? We are just tired. We're tired. We have been doing so much. Again, like I talked about last week, sometimes it's exhausting to wake up and constantly challenge yourself to be the best person you could possibly be. It's just freaking annoying. And, because we're in the new moon energy, again, the aspects taking place under the new moon that I go into detail about in the moon guide is putting us in an extremely annoyed situation. We are highly irritated, super frustrated. Our anger is just below the surface. We're in a time where we should be taking a time out, resting, reflecting, recalibrating in a new moon energy. And here we have Mars and Jupiter popping off, just pushing us to our breaking point. We got ants in our pants. We're tired of sitting around. Mostly, we're tired of having to do the best thing, to be the better person, to do the best possible job. We're tired of doing the things that we absolutely have to do. What we should be focused on as we move throughout Virgo season is starting to incorporate doing the things that we actually want to do. If you ever stop and take a good look at your life, even just the run of your day, and take a good look at how much your day is contributed to doing the things that you have to do versus how much time you actually spend doing the things that you want to do, you will have just a mind-blown situation. That should actually scare you a little bit, because if we're able to go through the run of our day spending, and I'll be generous and say like 98% of our time doing things that we have to do, and generous saying that we actually spend 2% of our day doing the things that we want to do, because many of us don't even get that 2%. When you realize that that day is repeated day after day after day after day, what does that say about our lives in the entirety of our lives? You know, you have to start living like you're about to die tomorrow, because you know what? You could die tomorrow and you'd be in a state of doing what it is that you had to do, exhausted and in the mood of, because you're only doing what you have to do. You're not doing what you want to do. And we have to start doing more of the things that we want to do, the things that nourish our heart, our mind, our body, our soul. We have to start taking care of ourselves. We have to start bringing happiness and joy into our lives instead of just waking up on autopilot, grunting throughout our day. And I'm not trying to preach down. I am in this boat with y'all. I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, it is Groundhog Day again, doing the exact same thing. I don't even enjoy most of the things I do. I just do it because I have to do it. It's part of life. It's the routine. I have roles and responsibilities and obligations and commitments. We all do. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty of it and you really take a good look at, okay, how much of my time today did I spend on doing things that I actually love, that I actually enjoy, that actually make me happy? It is a very sad freaking number, because the majority of hours spent are spent in a funk doing what you got to do, what you have to do. And that brings on a whole different level of exhaustion. If you are going to bed every night sleeping and waking up tired, it is not your physical body that is tired. It's your soul that's tired, because you're not doing the things that nourish your soul, spark your soul. I'm just as guilty. You know, we all have to take responsibility and accountability in the role that we're playing. Because if me, the individual, is waking up that way, and you, the individual, is waking up that way, and there's, 1,000 of us listening to this in agreement right now that we all wake up and we all do this every single day, what does that say about the collective? What does that say about the new earth that we're trying to create? We're trying to create a new earth of happiness and joy and pleasure and spiritual nourishment, not one of service and exhaustion and doing what you got to do to pay the bills. That's kind of the Matrix vibe. That ain't the new earth vibe that we're trying to do. But here in Virgo season is where we have to analyze those details, where we have to bring that information, that data, those statistics into our perspective so that we can identify it as a problem, so that we can provide a solution to it, to get us back to a state of health and wellness, mind, body, soul. Not only wellness, but wholeness. So yeah, I want you to sit in the funk of your annoyance. I want you to sit in the funk of your irritability, your frustration, even your anger. And I want you to recognize that those indicators, that emotion, is a huge sign and a huge signal of where it is that we have to make some changes, some dramatic changes to lighten the vibe, to bring more happiness and joy into our lives, to start doing more of what we want to do instead of only doing what we have to do, and really taking a good look at our exhaustion levels and recognizing whether it's physical exhaustion or soul exhaustion. And if it's physical exhaustion, well, we know what to do about that. We can fix those problems if it's a physical problem, but we really have to take a good look if it's a spiritual exhaustion, what it is that we need to do to bring that vibration, that frequency, that happiness, that joy, that spark, that fire, that flame back into our soul space and make this life that we are living just that much more healthy, whole, and enjoyable. So we are having some lower chakra cramping. Okay. So lower chakra, we're talking about root, sacral, and technically solar plexus, even though solar plexus is right below your ribs. We'll talk about that only because we're having some severe digestion, discomfort, and dysregulation, some acid reflux, some gallbladder issues. That's the solar plexus going through its transformation. I'm more focused on the root and the sacral. So the root is at the very base of the spine. It rules over our survival. This is where we have literally pain in our butt, pain in our hips, sciatica. This is, the root chakra where all of those heavy emotions are stored. Now we're having this cramping because we're in an earth energy that has us very rooted in our physical body, very rooted in the here and now of our physical circumstances that, again, don't feel so good. And we're having a hard time moving forward as fast as we would like. Again, earth energy, low and slow. So we're having some cramping issues. The sacral chakra is ruling over our reproductive systems. That's where creation comes in. Many of us too focused on the nitty-gritty practical details of what has to get done and not focused enough on creating, birthing new elements, happiness, joy, true expression, right? That's what we have to get back to. And now we're having these cramps in our lower extremities, our lower, even our bowels, our bladder, because we've been holding on to a lot of crap, literally, emotionally, spiritually, metaphorically, and we're kind of sitting with it. And again, I always invite you to sit in the funk, to sit in the crap. Lean all the way into how painful, how uncomfortable, how disgusting some things feel sometimes, because that is the only way that we can bring into awareness what it is that we got to do to make a change so that we don't have these experiences anymore. And yeah, like the digestion issue is not helping with the cramping. Many of us always hungry or never hungry. Most of us feeling very nauseous, most of us feeling nauseous because we're in a state of panic and anxiety in our mental plane, which, as we spoke about last week, has a huge impact on our digestion, on our gut. The nerves in our gut, they're wide awake. They are listening to every thought. They are just waiting for an excuse to knot up and feel that panic, that anxiety, that state of paralysis that prevents us from creating, from birthing new elements, from making a change, from being happy, from moving freely. And we have to sit in the funk in order to free ourselves. The nervousness, the restlessness, the anxiety, the impulsiveness, the jitteriness, the restlessness, that's all coming from this new moon energy. And hopefully when the new moon passes, we will get more of a grip because, again, we're in an analytical state of mind, which means that we have the ability to do a deep dive in our mental thoughts, our patterns, our behaviors, and examine what it is that we're allowing to take up space in our mental plane, creating this dis-ease, this unalignment, this jitteriness, this anxiety in our physical body. Once you bring it into awareness, you can change it. Once you become aware of the thoughts, you can change them. And this is what we're really having to focus on and examine through this new moon energy. So if you haven't noticed, time has been off once again. Yes, the recalibration, the integration stage that we're currently in is having a huge impact on time. I don't know if y'all noticed, but we just did this. I don't mean we just did this live chat last week. I mean, I literally feel like I just did this live chat. We have this beautiful, little session with each other. And then I woke up today and we're doing it again, right? But in retrospect, this last week, each and every single day that I woke up and I had to move through the same old, doing what I have to do instead of doing what I want to do, seemed pretty long, pretty monotonous, couldn't wait for bedtime. But here we are on Friday, and I literally feel like I just woke up from last Friday. Drop me a line in the comments. I want to know how space and time has affected you this week. Has it gone fast? Has it gone slow? Has it been a little bit of a mix in between? The matrix is changing. New Earth is changing. Our DNA is changing. Our mental plane is changing. So time and space have to change as well, but it's definitely out of whack. One thing I want to talk about. Have y'all had a case of hiccups over the last couple days? That is going to be a huge factor moving into next week. Hiccups. Why? Because our breath work is coming into realization and digestion coming into realization. Hiccups, kind of, throat, lungs, right? What do we got going on in the throat? Well, Mercury, right, rules over the throat, being able to speak, being able to tell, communicate, speak our truth, express ourselves, all that jazz. That's why we're having itchiness in the back of the throat and the constant need for clearing the throat. I don't know if y'all have been choking on your spit or forgetting to swallow, but I sure have. But the hiccups are definitely coming full force. We have to think diaphragm when we think hiccups. We have to think breath work. We have to think solar plexus. And we have a lot changing there because the integration period that we're going through, the recalibration going on in the upper chakras. And we find that we're learning how to breathe. We're learning how to swallow all over again. And, the hiccups are going to illuminate to us where it is that we are having this recalibration take place. Last week, I talked about, and y'all have a lot of interest in this. So I don't know how, I keep saying that I'm going to keep doing all these videos, and then I sit down to do the videos and I don't know where to start, and I don't know what to talk about, and I don't know what to focus on, and I get so overwhelmed, and then I procrastinate, and then nothing happens. But what I thought was interesting is there's a lot of interest in me talking about, the wrists, the palm chakras, the soul chakras, and how that relates to, the Christianity version of the nails through Jesus's hands and Jesus's feet, and how that was actually in genetically modified alteration in our DNA to prevent us from being able to use our powers. And one would want to talk about, well, who has that power over us? And I would talk about the intelligent race that formed us, but that would be a whole different podcast. Probably something I'm going to have to talk about because there is a lot of interest there. But what I want to say is that, we've been having these little tremors in our wrists because of the DNA being unlocked and coming back online, recalibrated in order for us to have a little bit more power back in our palm chakras. But this week, I feel like we're going to be feeling the pain, the tension, the weakness, the tremors, not just in our wrists, but in our arms as well. So shoulder down, right? Even in your elbow, there's going to be discomfort. There's going to be tension. There's going to be pain. There's going to be suffering in our arms. And a lot of that is because we are trying to, again, get our, I'm going to say, bodily systems in a state of alignment and wholeness and get those palm chakras working again. So massage your shoulders, massage your arms, stick them in the muscles that hurt. Crack your wrists if you can. Be rubbing your palms. Run them under cold water. Put them on the grass. Put them on the earth outdoors. Bury them in sand. Connect them to a vibration, a frequency that is open and flowing, which nature is. And just understand that when we have pain and discomfort in certain extremities, it's because the energy is trying so freaking hard in our light codes that we've already downloaded to come online to clear out the junk modifications that have been put in our DNA strand system, that it creates uncomfortability. It creates pain. This is essentially growing pains. Go back to your childhood. You ever had growing pains? I know I did. Well, we may be adults, but we are energetically going through growing pains, and we are going to feel it again from shoulders all the way down. If you carry tension in the shoulder part and you can feel that in your chest, massage your chest. Okay. Like literally our hands are healers. Start using them as healing wands. That's the only way that we're going to get in alignment with unlocking, the power that we used to have in our physical body, is by actually using it, putting it into use, believing that it's true, first and foremost, and actually taking the physical actions and the movements necessary to move our hands over our bodies, allowing the energy in our bodies and in the cosmos to realign and reconnect us. That is our job. We can't just, like I said earlier, you can't just lay on the couch complaining that your body hurts and that the Ascension symptoms hurt and you just hope that tomorrow's a different day. You got to get up. You got to do the work. You got to move your body. You got to jump into healing modalities. You got to try something different, because unless you break up the emotional blockages in your body, you are going to continue to feel like a bag of crap every single time that the electromagnetic frequencies pop off and you have all this energy trying to break up this blockages in your body that you're not doing anything to try and help the process. So we really have to be accountable. We have to be more responsible for our own levels of healing. And you're going to continue to hear me talk about healing and healing and healing and healing throughout Virgo season. That's what Virgo season is all about. Make the effort to try and heal yourself back to a state of wholeness. So guys, that's all I got for you this week. I ranted and raved long enough. I want to thank you so much for joining me, for, joining up with each other in the chat. You guys are beautiful support, not only for me, but for each other in the chat. I think it's amazing how you guys, just swoop in and give each other words of affirmation, words of reassurance, words of validation. This is a beautiful community that we have built. And I say we because it is a joint effort. And I want to thank you for continuously showing up, for sharing your time, your energy, your presence, not only with me, but for everyone here in this community. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support, and I give it all right back to y'all. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have an amazing week.